Pablo Escobar was the biggest and most dangerous drug lord the world has ever seen. He ran a huge cocaine empire from Colombia and made crazy amounts of money, more than $1 million a day at his best. But he was ruthless too. Over his years in control, he ordered the deaths of thousands, including judges, politicians, and even candidates for president. In the end, he lived like a hunted animal in the jungle, and he died on a rooftop in the city he used to own. His life was like an epic crime movie, starting poor, rising to insane riches, then crashing hard. Hey, friends, welcome back to another English shadowing practice. I'm Nathan here with you. Just a quick reminder, listening is great, but speaking is where the real progress happens. So as you follow along, repeat whatever feels comfortable. You don't have to repeat every single sentence. Catch what you can, pause when you need to, and try saying parts out loud in your own rhythm. Everything here is kept short and clear so it's easier to follow. Don't stress about being perfect. Progress comes from repetition, not perfection. So let's start. Pablo Emilio Escobar was born on December 1st, 1949, in Rio Negro, a small town about 45 minutes from Medellin, Colombia. His father, Abel, was a hard-working cattle farmer. His mother, Hermilda, was a school teacher. Pablo was the third of 7 children, growing up in a middle-class home. The area was already deep into the marijuana and cocaine trade. Not every family sold drugs, but most people protected the ones who did because the money helped everyone. Violence was part of daily life. Shootings and fights were common. When Pablo was young, the family moved to Envigado, a village near Medellin. His mom wanted to start her own elementary school there. His dad sold the farm and became a neighborhood watchman. Hermilda soon became very popular and respected in the community for her teaching. In school, Pablo was smart and quick. He was a little chubby. He loved fast food, but he was great at sports, especially soccer. His teachers often talked about social justice, helping the poor, and fighting inequality. These ideas had a big influence on him. As a teenager, he joined street protests and sometimes threw rocks at the police. He got involved in a youth movement called Nadaísmo. It was about rejecting rules, disobeying parents, living free, and making your own path. Part of that included experimenting with drugs. At only 13 years old, Pablo started smoking marijuana, and that habit stayed with him forever. By age 16, Pablo was short, around 5'6", round-faced, with a small mustache. School felt boring and strict, so he dropped out just before his 17th birthday. He wanted to make real money his own way. He opened a small bicycle repair shop. He'd collect old bike parts from streets and dumps, fix them, and offer cheap repairs. With the money, he bought a fast Lambretta motorcycle. Now he could move quickly, and that opened new ideas for easy cash. According to stories, his criminal life began by stealing tombstones from the local cemetery. He'd sandblast the names off and resell the stones. Clever and shady. But soon, he moved to something faster, robbing stores. He'd scout a business, ride up on his motorcycle, pull on a balaclava mask, rush inside with a knife or gun, take the money, and escape in about 30 seconds. It was quick and worked well. After a few successful robberies, he teamed up with his cousin. One drove the bike as the getaway driver, the other went in to rob. It was a good system, but Pablo got bored easily. He wanted bigger scores. Next, he switched to stealing cars. He made a secret connection with a Renault car dealer. The dealer gave him copies of keys to recently sold cars and the buyers' addresses. Pablo would show up, unlock the car, and drive it away like nothing. Super easy money. In his late teens, he got caught in the middle of stealing a car. He spent several months in La Ladera jail. Instead of hating it, he saw it as useful. In prison, he learned from real criminals about bigger things like kidnapping and entering the drug world. Jail was basically his school for serious crime. After release, Pablo and his cousin went straight back to stealing cars. They gathered stolen engine parts and sold them bit by bit. They even built their own race cars and entered local races for fun. But Medellin had many car thieves, so Pablo expanded. He started selling protection. People paid him so their cars wouldn't get stolen. He could do this because he already had a scary reputation as violent and unpredictable. If anyone owed him money and didn't pay, he'd arrange a kidnapping and demand ransom. Sometimes he'd kill the person even after the ransom came, just to spread fear. Before long, Pablo made kidnapping his main way to earn big money. Together with his cousin and a future brother-in-law, he kidnapped a rich businessman named Diego Echavarria. This man was very unpopular with poor workers because he fired so many of them. They demanded $50,000 ransom. The family agreed to pay, but Pablo's group beat the man, strangled him, and left his body in a ditch anyway. Surprisingly, this terrible act made Pablo popular among the poor people of Medellin. They saw it as him standing up to the rich and powerful. In a twisted way, the crime turned him into a kind of hero for the little guy. After the kidnapping made him popular with the poor, Pablo wanted even bigger money. In 1971, when he was 22, he started working for a Medellin contraband dealer named Alvaro Prieto. At first, he did small amounts of drug trafficking. But Pablo was ambitious. He didn't want to work for someone else forever. He wanted his own piece of the action, and a much bigger one. One day, he drove his stolen Renault 4 all the way to Ecuador. There, he bought about 5 kilos of Peruvian cocaine paste, the raw form, before it's turned into powder. He cleverly got it back through police and military checkpoints without getting caught. Back in Medellin, he processed the paste into pure cocaine. Then, he contacted some fellow criminals, the Ochoa brothers, to help set up a sale to a local cocaine boss named Fabio Restrepo. The deal went perfectly. Pablo made close to $100,000, way more than anything he'd earned before from robberies or kidnappings. This one sale showed him the huge potential of cocaine. He was hooked on the drug business now. Just 2 months later, Fabio Restrepo was murdered. No one proved Pablo did it, but everyone in the underworld believed he was behind it. Restrepo's people were mostly rich, fancy types who dressed well and acted classy. They were scared of Pablo and his rough, street-tough crew. Pablo and his guys were different, more violent, more willing to do anything. So, with Restrepo gone, Pablo took over the Medellin cocaine operation. He became the new boss, almost overnight. Around this time, in the mid-1970s, when he was about 26, Pablo married a 15-year-old girl named Maria Victoria Henao. People called her Tata. Now he had a wife, growing wealth, and real power. It felt like nothing could stop him. The cocaine business exploded in the late 1970s. Most of the drug going from South America to the United States passed through Pablo's organization. He made the whole system super efficient. He bought his own planes, including a fancy Learjet, to fly the cocaine north. There were always plenty of buyers in America who wanted it. Just 2 months after his wedding, Pablo and some partners got arrested after a drug flight from Ecuador. Agents found 39 kilos of cocaine hidden in the spare tire of their truck. That much coke could mean a very long prison sentence. Pablo's first move was to try bribing the judge. The judge said no. So Pablo's team did some digging. They found out the judge had a brother who was a lawyer, and the two brothers didn't get along. Pablo offered the brother lawyer a huge fee to represent him. As expected, the judge had to step down because of the family conflict. The new judge was easier. He took the bribe, and Pablo walked free. Money really talked in those days. By 1980, Pablo was at the top of his game. Millions poured into Colombia from cocaine. Bank deposits in the big cities doubled in just a few years. Pablo used his cash to control every part of the business. He traveled to Peru, Bolivia, and Panama, buying coca farms where the plants grow, and labs where it's processed into powder. He bribed police, military, and officials in every country along the way. His famous rule became plata o plomo, silver or lead. That meant, take my bribe money, silver, or get shot, lead. Most people chose the money. Very few chose lead and lived to tell about it. Pablo owned mansions, fast cars, helicopters, and planes. He always had bodyguards and people around him. His money changed Medellin too. New discos, fancy restaurants, and nightlife popped up everywhere. Soccer was one of Pablo's big loves. He paid to fix up fields, add lights for night games, and even hired professional announcers to call the matches like they were big tournaments. It was all for fun with his crew. In 1979, he built his dream ranch called Hacienda Napole, about 80 miles from Medellin, on 7,400 acres. He brought in exotic animals from around the world, hippos, giraffes, zebras, elephants, to roam the land like a private zoo. He added 6 swimming pools and a huge mansion that could sleep 100 people. It was pure luxury. While he lived like a king in private, Pablo worked on his public image. He always said he had nothing to do with drugs. He acted humble, polite, and friendly in public. He tried to look like a fighter for the poor, not just a criminal. He spent millions on good causes, building houses, schools, and sports fields. From 1980 to 1982, Pablo did more to help poor people in Medellin than the Colombian government ever had. His most famous project was Barrio Pablo Escobar, a neighborhood of simple houses he built and gave away for free to families who used to live in shacks at the city dump. People loved him for it. In Medellin, he was the most popular man around. In private, though, Pablo was very different. He spoke softly and seemed relaxed, but he did whatever he wanted. He loved food, alcohol, and women. He saw himself as above any rules. Once, when one of his men stole from him, Pablo had the guy tied up and brought to the pool. He kicked him in and made everyone watch as the man drowned. That was Pablo, kind to some, deadly to others. With his huge popularity among the poor and total control of the cocaine business, Pablo decided to go legitimate, at least on the surface. He wanted respect from society, not just fear from criminals. His political journey started small. In 1978, he got elected as a substitute city councilor in Medellin. Then, in 1980, he helped create and funded a new political group called the New Liberal Movement. In 1982, he ran for Congress and won a seat as an alternate delegate from Medellin. He'd step in when the main person couldn't attend. Being in Congress gave him big perks. He got judicial immunity, so Colombian courts couldn't easily convict him for crimes. He also got a diplomatic passport, which let him travel to the United States freely. On one trip, he bought an $8 million mansion in Miami Beach for his family. Now Pablo had real political power mixed with his criminal empire. He even built his own private army. When guerrillas from the M19 group kidnapped a family friend, Pablo created a death squad called Death to Kidnappers, MAS, in Spanish. They hunted down and killed anyone connected to kidnappings. It was brutal, but it worked for him. But going into national politics was the start of his big problems. In Medellin, people saw him as a Robin Hood, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. In Bogota and high society, they saw the truth, a violent drug boss with no morals. On August 16th, 1983, Pablo showed up for his first day in Congress as an alternate. He arrived with a group of armed bodyguards. The guards were stopped at the door, no weapons or thugs allowed. Pablo quickly found a tie. He wasn't wearing one at first, and walked in. He sat down, looking nervous, biting his nails. Right away, the chamber president ordered all bodyguards out. Pablo agreed, and they left. Then Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla stood up. He was defending himself against corruption claims, but he turned the attack on Pablo. In a strong speech, Lara called out Pablo's sudden wealth, from bicycles and other things to planes, hangars, and a private army. He said Pablo was using charity to buy support from poor people and that United States authorities were investigating him for drug crimes. Pablo stayed quiet in the chamber. When he left, reporters surrounded him. He stormed off without answering. Through his lawyer, he demanded Lara show proof within 24 hours or face a lawsuit. Lara didn't back down. Newspapers soon printed stories exposing Pablo's drug dealing, killings, and criminal past. Pablo became an outcast in politics. He was kicked out of the New Liberal Movement. The United States canceled his visa. Even the Catholic Church pulled away their support. The government seized many of his exotic animals from Hacienda Nápoles, saying they were brought in illegally. Worse still, the Colombian government, pushed by Lara, was speeding up an extradition treaty with the United States. If it passed, Pablo could be sent to America for trial, where bribes wouldn't work as easily. In May 1984, Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara was shot dead in his car by gunmen on motorcycles. Everyone knew Pablo ordered it. The murder shocked Colombia and turned many people against him. He had just declared open war on the state. With too much heat, Pablo fled Colombia by helicopter to Panama. He hoped for protection from President Manuel Noriega, who had taken his bribes before, but Panama didn't want the trouble. After a few weeks, Pablo had to leave again. He went to Nicaragua for a short time. While away, his control over the Medellin cartel started slipping. Someone even kidnapped his 73-year-old father. That was the final straw. Pablo returned to Colombia and ordered a wave of revenge killings. Dozens of suspected kidnappers were gunned down until his father was freed, no ransom paid. Back home, Pablo went full war mode. He was untouchable in Medellin because he'd bought off almost every official. He moved freely, even as the most wanted man. His main targets were judges who supported extradition to the United States. Over time, more than 30 judges were assassinated. Then, in November 1985, Pablo paid the M-19 guerrillas about $1 million. In return, they stormed the Palace of Justice in Bogota. They took the entire Supreme Court hostage and demanded the government cancel the extradition treaty. The army fought back hard in a bloody siege. In the end, 11 of the 24 Supreme Court justices died, along with about 40 guerrillas. The building burned, and many records were destroyed, some say on purpose to help drug lords. By 1988, killings happened almost every day in Colombia. The government declared martial law to stop the country from falling apart. On August 18, 1989, Pablo's men killed the leading presidential candidate, Luis Carlos Galán, and a top police chief. These murders made the violence national news. The government responded by extraditing over 20 suspected traffickers to the United States in just a few months. A special police unit moved to Medellin to hunt Pablo. In their first month, 30 of the 200 officers were killed. Pablo kept escaping capture, but he was exhausted from always running and hiding. Pablo was tired of running. The constant hiding, the fear of being caught or killed, and the pressure from all sides were wearing him down. By 1991, he decided to negotiate a surrender, but only on his terms. He offered to stop all violence, end his drug business, and turn himself in. In return, he wanted a special prison he could control, no extradition to the United States, and to keep most of his wealth and properties in Medellin. The Colombian government was under huge pressure. Pablo's war had killed thousands and almost broken the country. In 1991, a new constitution was passed that banned extradition of Colombian citizens. That removed Pablo's biggest fear. After long talks, the government agreed to his demands. In June 1991, Pablo surrendered and was sent to a prison he basically built himself, La Catedral. It sat on a hill near Medellin with amazing views. Inside, it looked more like a luxury resort than a jail. There was a soccer field, a jacuzzi, a bar, and fancy suites instead of cells. The guards were all people Pablo paid. Chefs from top restaurants cooked gourmet meals for him and his friends. He had parties, visitors anytime, and even continued running parts of his business from inside. Phones, meetings, and deals happened freely. It was the perfect setup for a kingpin who refused to really be punished. But after a few months, reports leaked out. People said Pablo was still ordering killings and managing cocaine shipments from La Catedral. This broke the surrender deal. The government decided to move him to a normal high-security prison. Pablo's connections warned him in time. On July 22, 1992, just before the transfer, he escaped. He and a few men simply walked out. Some say he bribed or threatened the guards one last time. The most powerful prisoner in Colombia was free again. Now the hunt was bigger than ever. Colombian police, the army, and United States agents, DEA and others, worked together. They used high-tech tracking, informants, and wiretaps. A new enemy joined the fight, Los Pepes, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar. This was a vigilante group, made up of his enemies, rival cartels, victims' families, and even some police who worked secretly with them. Los Pepes were ruthless. They killed hundreds of people connected to Pablo, lawyers, accountants, friends, and family members. They bombed his properties, burned his businesses, and spread terror to cut off his support. In many ways, they were as violent as Pablo himself. Pablo became a true fugitive. He moved from hideout to hideout, small apartments, farms, jungle camps. He couldn't trust phones or radios anymore. Everything was monitored. He slept on the ground, ate little, and was always looking over his shoulder. Most of his close allies were dead or arrested. His once huge organization was crumbling. His family suffered too. His wife Tata and their 2 children, a son and daughter, were forced into hiding. Pablo tried to protect them, but the pressure was crushing. On December 2nd, 1993, his 44th birthday, just the day before, everything ended. Colombian search block teams, a special unit trained with United States help, picked up a radio signal. Pablo was calling his son from a safe house in the Los Olivos neighborhood of Medellin. The team surrounded the simple brick house. They smashed the front door with a sledgehammer. 6 officers rushed in. Gunfire exploded immediately. Inside with Pablo was his loyal bodyguard, nicknamed Limon. The 2 men ran from the living room, upstairs, and onto the tiled roof. A massive shootout followed. Bullets flew from the house, the street, and helicopters overhead. Limon was hit multiple times in the back and fell off the roof to the ground. Then Pablo went down. He was shot in the legs, body, and finally, a bullet went through his head right above the ear. The search block leader radioed excitedly, "Viva Colombia! We have killed Pablo Escobar!" Officially, that's the story. Pablo died in a firefight on December 2nd, 1993. His body was shown on TV, and huge crowds gathered. But some people still question it. Pablo had always told his family, "If they corner me, I'll never let them take me alive. I'll put a bullet in my own head." The fatal shot looked like a close-range suicide wound to many. His family and some supporters believe he killed himself to avoid capture and humiliation. Either way, the man who once ruled Colombia's underworld was gone. The Medellin cartel fell apart soon after. The cocaine trade continued with other groups, but Pablo's era of total dominance ended. His life left a dark mark, thousands dead, a country scarred by violence, and a legend of a man who rose from nothing, built an empire on blood and money, and fell in the city where he started. All right, if you made it through this shadowing session today, that already says something about your discipline. This repetition and consistency combination might look boring on paper, but it is one of the most powerful ways to build fluent, natural English. Keep showing up like this, and your brain will slowly adapt. Trust the process. If this helped even a little, consider liking the video or subscribing. It lets me know these sessions are actually making a difference. We will do this again soon. Take care.